that?
And pretty quiet.
Right, I've got that there. So that's.
Are we on?
Yeah, kind of. Right, that's live. I need to make this full screen. And just wait to see if that.
Angel is a Pittsburgh Steeler fan.
Who is?
I said Angel's a Pittsburgh Steeler fan. So they were harassing her at work because Pittsburgh got beat. She turned around, yeah, but the Broncos got beat, and they got beat worse than the Steelers did.
Well, as a Raiders fan, that cheers me up no end that the
well, we'll have to see because one of the
Broncos
star
were
players,
beaten.
one of the star players is out for the year.
You have a star player? Or should I say you had one?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
I was sitting there and I get kind of frustrated with people who are running sweat lodges for women and basically young girls. And I used to run the lodge, but when I had my vision and I did some checking back in history and found out that the sweat lodge was for men only. It wasn't for everybody. And that's when I had the vision and they told me that the sweat lodge was for men only. And that's when they showed me the Mother Earth Lodge, which really is a lot more powerful than the sweat lodges.
Yeah, I think you mentioned before about sweat lodges. But what you're on about here about sweat lodges for women then? Who's running them?
Yeah, because I was just looking on Facebook, they said Women's Sweat Lodge. If they would call it right, Women's Moon Lodge.
Is it run by indigenous people or is it just...
Nope. There's so many people running them nowadays. And I was laughing because this one guy went to a sweat lodge run by a non-native, and he had a recording inside the lodge with the songs. He had a tape recorder. The only thing the sweat lodge basically is for is to purify, and that's it. But when it gets so hot that you can have hallucinations when you're in a sweat lodge, especially when they tell you you're not supposed to eat for so many hours.
Right. Have you ever seen or heard of the film based on Rhonda Byrne's book, The Secret?
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure if this guy was in that or whether it was What the Bleep Do We Know? A guy called James Arthur Ray, I think his name was. And he was pretty inspirational when I saw him in these videos. But apparently, and I say apparently, somebody died or was seriously injured in a sweat lodge he was running. We're talking over 10 years ago.
Yeah. Well, there was a guy down in New Mexico or Arizona, one or two, and he was running lodges, and there's about 4 or 5 people that died at his lodge because he wasn't using stones, he was using contaminated bricks.
Bricks?
Yeah. At least that's what they were reporting anyway. But I mean, they were paying a hell of a lot of money for it. I think it was I believe I heard $300 or something per person.
So they died from the toxins then? The people that you just talking about that died, that was from the toxins then?
Yeah. The rocks were toxic.
So I take it...
Yeah, it's funny because in the Dakota tradition, you're not supposed to use river rocks that are in the water. And the Ojibwas and Algonquins, they use river rocks. And I was sitting there and said, well, you take the rock and you put water on it, right? So the Ojibwas always said, well, if you take the rock from the water or by the water is sacred. It's what we're made up of. So when you take the rock, you're bringing that source of water into the lodge, which makes sense.
I take it there's no legislation on running sweat lodges in your country then?
Yeah. I wish they'd just go back to where it used to be, and they sit and they go. They're not being given any information as far as from someone. Like for me, like people said, can you show me how to run a Mother Earth lodge? When you have a vision and you tell me that vision, I'll tell you whether I can or can't. Because I said the energy's then, because you'll say certain things that you had a vision say, then you say certain things, then now you know that the energies are talking. But a lot of them basically sit there and BS a lot, and they didn't have no vision. They just want to basically be able to run a Mother Earth lodge.
Are they quite popular then? Are a lot of people running them over there?
They're running the Sweat Lodge, but no one's running up Mother Earth Lodge because, again, there's a lot that goes into the Mother Earth Lodge that I haven't really revealed to anybody. I think the only person basically I revealed it was to Matthew.
Yeah, I was on about sweat lodges though. Are there lots of people in America running sweat lodges then?
Around, I would say, a lot of them basically in the southern states. When you go to North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, Minnesota, Wisconsin, it's traditional.
And are there many that are run properly then by Indigenous people, or are they just, I don't know what word to describe the people, but the people that are just running them for money?
Yeah, it's a franchise.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Can you go and attend a legitimate sweat lodge run by Indigenous people easily enough over there, or not? And should you?
Well, if an Indigenous person's running it, then they know what they're doing. But see, when you run a sweat lodge, you generally will get a vision. And in that vision, they'll basically take you a place and they will show you how to build the lodge. And then once you build a lodge, they'll explain what the lodge is all about, how you basically need to run the lodge, and that you tell people this is only a purification lodge. That's why we sweat. Whereas the Mother Earth Lodge is completely different. You use the same type of rocks and everything, but it's not that hot. The first round, you have 7 rocks. The second round, you have 4 rocks. And then depending on the weather, you determine how many rocks you're going to bring in for the healing round. And that's the one that gets hot. And then when the healing round is done, you open the door, then you may bring in 2, 3, or 4 rocks, depending, on the weather again.
So I'm just wanting to call out the shysters at the minute. Are there a lot of people running them that shouldn't be then?
Oh yeah, I know a few of them.
But is it possible for somebody who isn't Indigenous, in the sense of they're not of your descendant, your origins? Or shall I just put it simply? Is it possible for a white person to run a sweat lodge?
Anybody can run a sweat lodge if they're given vision. Because we're all Indigenous if we become people of the earth.
Yeah, we've covered that. That's why I was trying to word it perfectly. So if a white person has had a vision, they can run a sweat lodge then.
Yeah.
But otherwise, they shouldn't.
They know exactly how to do it. why it's there, what the purpose is, and it's not like right away it's a spiritual experience. No, it's a lodge that will purify you because again, the reason why it was for men only, the women had a natural way of cleansing their body, which was basically their time of the month, whereas the men didn't. So the men basically wanted a way to purify their body, so therefore the sweat lodge was given to them. But some of them get carried away. It's unbelievable. And I should warn people, don't go into a Druid lodge. Because when you come out, they stick a fork in you and they turn you over. Because they cook you in
A what lodge?
a Druid lodge. When they do their version of the sweat lodge.
Oh.
I mean, I had to give them hell because people were almost dying in there. It was so hot. So I'd sit there and I could feel that people suffering. So I'd say, open the door. And they were kind of getting irritated. I said, this is supposed to be something of a cleansing for people. I said, it's not meant to cook them. I said, and the way you bring in these rocks, I mean, it's so hot in here. How are people going to concentrate on why they're there? What type of a conversation are they going to have with the energies when they can't talk? I said, so you have to make it comfortable enough so they have time to talk, time to relate why they're in there. And a lot of them basically, again, should realize that it's a purification lodge. And a lot of people say, well, I had a vision. Well, of course, when you get that hot, you're going to hallucinate. And so, like I said, I've been having visions on lodges, on my Mother Earth Lodge. And in the visions, they're showing me the wrong way and the right way. You know, that I'm still being educated, even though I'm doing it the right way. They'll show me there is a possibility of doing it a wrong way. I said, because if you don't have the materials, you can't fudge. You got to do it the original way.
Okay.
But that's what I'm saying. You know, visions are very important for people. And there's a way of asking for visions and asking who you are, and that would you show me and train me on what I'm supposed to do. But we're so intact with we go to a talk and we get so impressed that we say, will you become my teacher? And I guess the best example would be a guru, where people just flock with him. And when I went to this one famous guru in London, he was speaking. He never did speak. He just sat there with all these women surrounding him. No men, all women. And the whole idea is that it was almost like he had a harem and that he had control over them, which I said is not right. Because when you sit there and you entice people and then you brainwash them to a point where they'll follow you and they'll jump off the cliff if you jump off. So people have to start understanding that they have their pathway, and it's very easy to find their pathway if they just commit to it. There are certain tools that they can utilize, you know, like simple sometimes, just put tobacco and tell the tobacco that, can you show me or give me a hint of who I am, and then just put it down on Mother Earth, go inside, go to sleep. And if you asked right, they heard you, boom, they'll take you in a vision. And they'll start you off. They're not going to sit there and say, all right, this is who you are. No, you got to go through a process, a learning process. It's like when in the CD, when you talk about throwing the pebble in the water and the ripples. Well, when you're learning, you have to learn the first ripple that comes to shore. And then you go to the second ripple, the third, until you can find the center. And then that's when you have all the information that you need who you are, how you're connected, and what energy you're connected to. But how do you convince people, when they're so brainwashed that they don't understand there's an easier way to find out who you are? I mean, everything I've learned through visions. If I sit there and ask, all of a sudden I'll have a vision and they show me. If it's not meant for me, nothing. So if nothing happens in so many days, then you you can repeat it, but after the second time, don't repeat it the third time because it's not meant for you. You're just wasting your time.
At the start of this little section that you were just talking about, you said it's easy to have a vision, and then you went off for ages. So how is it easy to have a vision then?
Well, if you ask, it's just like if you say, go do that, and you're going to say, do what? Well, if I explain what I want you to do, you know exactly what to do. So it's just like you've got to go through a process, because if they would give you everything all at one time, you wouldn't remember anything. So you got to go through steps, step 1, step 2, step 3, and each one is a learning process that starts preparing you for your gift. And how you sit there and understand how the energies come to you and help you. Because once you understand the energies, then you can ask the energies to help as well when you need some advice.
Indigenous teachings.
Fusco and I, the first time we met, he would only speak Lakota. And I had Stanley looking out, interpret. And he was talking about the people from Washington. So I said, I want to tell you, I know he understands English, but you can say in Lakota that the best thing to do is to make your enemies your friend. And I said, and then those people who try to help you, you need to respect them as a human being and work with them. But if you criticize the people who want to be friends and help you, they become your enemies because they're put down. So I said, the whole idea, like they had this one movie where the guy was sitting there and he was trying, can you understand me? And the chief said, I went to your American school. I understand English quite well. And I speak English quite well. And he said, the government wants to give you some land. You live on a reservation. He said, we have our land. We don't need a reservation. And they said, well, we can buy you a piece of land. And he said, no, the guy said, the United States government owns the land. And the chief looks at him, he said, did you buy the land? No. Did you sit there and offer gifts for the land? No. Then how can it be your land? So it was a pretty good movie because they were trying to think that they didn't understand what they were saying.
You sent me the clip. What was the film though? Because I asked you.
It was kind of like well, one was I think it was Bury My Heart and Wounded Knees.
Right.
It was the clip I sent you. This other one, I'm trying to think what the name of it was, but it had the guy from the new Star Trek, the Next Generation, the engineer. Yeah, he was in it. But
that's not the new one anymore.
Yeah,
oh God, I think Next Generation came out when I left school, so it's not hardly the new one. I don't even know which is the new Star Trek at the minute. There's that many.
But see, we've kind of lost our pathway as well, because we were supposed to become the keeper of the knowledge, so that when the other three colors came back, we were supposed to get them back in balance. Instead of sharing what we needed to share, the information and everything, they turned us into one of them. And we forgot that the main reason why we were on the earth was to teach people how to reconnect with the energies, to connect with the teachings, the old teachings. But very few people understand the old teachings now, because what they do is they criticize rather than giving people information. When they criticize you, and then you say, no, well, this is what you understand. Okay, let me tell you what it really is. Then you explain to them where they got all their facts wrong. And this is the original way. And a good example would be Custer's Last Stand. All they understood was the white man's version of Custer's Last Stand. The natives were telling them the history, and they said, you're lying. Now, when they're uncovering, the archaeologists are going in, and they're starting to uncover that the natives' interpretation was 100% right.
What is their interpretation then?
Was that there was no such thing as Custer's Last Stand. I mean, they were so frightened that they were running. There was like 50 of them that just dropped their guns and just start running down this gully, and they were trapped. There were bodies scattered all over. It's just that they got the last of Custer's men got caught on top of a hill. But there was no last stand because it was over with in about 12 minutes.
Right. The only version of Custer's Last Stand that I've seen is in the film Little Big Man.
Yeah.
Dustin Hoffman.
Uh-huh.
So in that he thinks he's going to win, and then they get stuck on the hill and they all die. So what's different in the real version then?
Well, the real version was that it was a battle, but it was a battle that was completely on the side of the natives, and that Custer and his men panicked because he was going to go in there. He thought it was a small village. He didn't realize there was 8,000 warriors there. But all the mistakes he made, he was told, don't attack the village. It's a lot larger, and there's a lot of indigenous people, a lot of Sioux, Cheyenne, Arapaho there. And he said, I'm going for glory. So he split his troops up in order to have Reno charged so that the tribes would go ahead and attack Reno, leaving him free to attack the other side of the camp. But his goal, believe it or not, wasn't so much to go after the Braves. He was going to capture the women and the children and force the Braves to give up. But he didn't realize that there were 7,000 warriors waiting for him. And the original, it was the gathering wasn't meant for war. The gathering was a spiritual gathering. But when Custer came, it turned into a battle rather than a spiritual journey thing.
I take it they all died.
Yeah, but when they had a indigenous person who was with the park rangers, but he was in charge with the little bit, what do you call it, the Custer's Last Stand monument there. And he got fired because he was telling the truth. And then he took it to court, and they had to reinstate him.
So you've just told me the indigenous version. What is the traditional mainstream version then? What do they say happened in the mainstream version? As I say, I only know it from Little Big Man.
Most of the soldiers were killed even before the final battle.
Right.
I mean, they had cartridges that said they could fire. Let's see, they had 100 rounds of ammunition, and they could fire 12 to 15 rounds. But they found out from the empty cartridges, they barely got about 2 or 3 rounds off before they were killed. So that's why I said most of them were running from the battle. That's how they got killed. So the version basically, like they called it, I think it was Buffalo Gap or Buffalo something, where there was about 60 soldiers that went in there and never came back out. I mean, what are you going to do when you sit there? You got 50 people and you're surrounded by 1,000 warriors. It ain't going to last very long, is it?
No, I take it there was no point trying to surrender either then.
Yeah. But they were on the run. The whole time they were running from the battle. And then when you had the Winchester that could fire 15 shots in a minute, big difference from the breech load cartridges that they had.
Yeah, I don't know if you hear me. I said the ones that were running, there was no point in them trying to surrender then.
No.
They wouldn't have been shown mercy then.
No. Well, Custer was known as a butcher.
Well, that's what I mean.
And the 7th Cavalry was known as the butchers as well. So a lot of it, that battle, once it was revenge. And then a lot of times they say the battle was led by Sitting Bull. Sitting Bull did not even get close to the battle. He was doing ceremonies at the time of the battle. It was Crazy Horse mostly that, and Roman Nose that basically was involved in the battle strategy and stuff. But the native version was that the indigenous people, the first thing they did was they ran off the horses. The second thing they did, they went out, they killed all the officers and the sergeants. So that's why you had completely, how would you say it, confusion, because they had no leaders. The only thing that left was the corporal and the regular soldiers, so they had no leadership.
And what happened to Custer then in the indigenous version? Was he heroic till the end, or did he die running away with his tail between his legs?
No, he was there, but I mean, the battle didn't last that long anyway. But with the Cheyenne women, when they found his body, they said, "You made a promise over the sacred pipe that you would not kill Cheyenne people, and yet you mask them. So what we're going to do, we're going to put this arrow through your one ear and out the other. Maybe in the next world you'll hear better." It's funny because when I was up to the Cheyenne Reservation up in Montana, the elderly ladies repeated that story to me to make sure I understood what happened to Custer.
And did that really happen then, or is that just a...
Yeah, it was actually a true story. But they wouldn't, like a lot of times, I know in history they said they mutated. But they did really mutate it. It was their belief system that they would cut the arm off like a Cheyenne so that they couldn't use it in the next world. So there was always a reason why they did certain things. And then the whole idea, they said, scalping. The scalping was a French tradition that was taught to the indigenous people because you couldn't bring a whole British body to you during the French-Indian War. So they said, just take the hair. So that's where scalping came from.
Yeah, you did mention that in a previous episode because I asked you about that because I wasn't aware of that. I wondered where it came from. Now, indigenous teachings, you're saying, is love. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So where does revenge come in, or is that something you stole from the white man?
Well, you got to remember by that time, when all the things that were happening in the indigenous people, they changed their philosophy. They became like the white man because they figured they had no honor in wartime, whereas the Lakota, Nakota, Dakota would ride up to you and touch you with a coop stick. It tells you, I could have had your life. When they run up to touch him with the coop stick, they were met with a 50 carbine bullet. So they said, hey, this ain't working. Where's the honor in the battle? So then they start fighting just like they did.
No, it's understandable. I was just querying it. So it basically, what you're saying is, if you can't convert them, join them.
Yeah. You know, when you sit there and you take, for instance, a peaceful tribe or peaceful people, and you keep doing things to them, it's like they say, if you abuse a dog and you keep abusing that dog's going to finally bite you. And that's what happened with indigenous people, is that they were being kicked, they were being killed and everything, and then all of a sudden they retaliated. They said if they're going to kill our people, our women, our children, they're going to do the same to them. But when the natives did it, it was horrifying. But when they did it to the native people, it was a victory.
Yeah. Double standards, eh?
It's like, if they would have followed the teachings of the indigenous people, we wouldn't have El Nino,
Wouldn't have what?
the situation that was El Nino, El Nino, with the hot weather and everything that's coming,
Oh, right.
monsoons.
Oh, yeah. El Nino or something. Yeah.
And if they would have followed the teachings and the information from the indigenous people, we wouldn't have this problem today. But Oxford actually did a study the first 100 years in America that they completely destroyed the ecology of North America. And in the process, the first 100 years, they killed 60 million indigenous people to get the land. And then they cut all the trees down, which gave us life because they wanted to farm. So you don't get rid of one of the main oxygen givers in order to plant things that were not natural, really.
Well, it's still going on, isn't it? The cutting down of trees, the Amazon and things. People
And they always made sure that, that the earth was left better for the seventh generation. Nowadays, it doesn't go past the first generation.
Yeah, we were talking about that last week. You said, how many did you say? 60 million indigenous people
You
killed.
just went silent.
Yeah, I muted my mic.
There
Did you
go.
say 60 million indigenous people killed?
Yeah, 60 million in the first 100 years just on the eastern coast.
Now, how many of them were slaughtered and how many were, disease or starvation? I mean, it's all horrible either way, but I'm just saying, how much was it down to direct slaughter,
Well,
killing?
whether you want to look at sickness and the killing of them, it's all slaughter.
Well, yeah, what I mean is,
I mean,
how
there was no
many?
disease here until they got here. We were
Yeah, I
disease
just
free.
said it's all under the same umbrella of being horrible, but how many was direct killing, murder then?
I would probably say about 40%.
Wow. That's what I'm saying. I didn't know. That's why I wanted to clarify.
Well, to
Because
give
it's
an
all.
example too, like the story I was told by Russell Haynes was that the native tribe was sitting there and the pilgrims wanted their land. So they monitored them, and then all the warriors went out for a hunting expedition. While the warriors were gone, they attacked the village and killed everybody in it. And when they got finished killing, they went back and had Thanksgiving. So Russell said the true meaning of Thanksgiving. It wasn't the whole tradition. It was tradition based on a massacre.
With your country, that would not surprise me. I know not your country, but America does like its killings, doesn't it? School shootings, cults, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's like it let Trump sit there and said, "We're going to get rid of all the migrants here in the United States," and then they showed a picture of Russell Means saying, "Can I pack your bag?"
No, it's horrendous what's happened to your, ancestors.
Yeah, I kind of miss the conversations I used to have with Russell.
We are 2 minutes from the end before we get kicked out. So you just said your conversations with Russell. Do you want to finish that thread?
Well, we used to have some, and I told him, one day we were talking, I said, "Russell, I said, you have the world in your hands right now. I said, it's time to quit being violent. It's time to use diplomacy." But it didn't sink into him. And it was years later when he was on, oh, what's his name? The commentator, King, is that his name? And he sat there, he said, "A good friend of mine once told me that I had the world in my hand, that I should use diplomacy. I wish I would have listened to him then." He goes,
Larry King?
Larry King, there you go.
I did well there because I
But he
don't
was
watch
on
too
there.
much American TV.
Yeah. But it's so funny because even Oprah had a group of Native people come on. And the subject matter was Indian names of teams. How important was that to know the culture and the way Native people lived? The whole program was based on the fact that the names were a slur. There are a lot more important things than slurs. It's just like the Seminoles. The Seminoles gave them approval to be the Florida Seminoles. So some of these tribes actually gave them permission to use the name because they used it as an honor.
Right, well,
But
we'll
it
cut off
seemed
any
like the
second now.
younger generation was so disillusioned and so much on the wrong pathway. Like they have this conference, which they have all the young people come there.
Oh, dear me. Oh, that's that then.